So let's do this quickly. So we're outside, it's pissing down with rain, which is typical in Leeds. First thing I'm looking at when I'm going to do a property is actually outside. So the property we're viewing is that one. It's number 10 Christchurch in LS12. And the first thing we're looking at is up at the roof. Okay, and what I'm going to look at is first of all the flashing around the chimney. You can see it's all there, and I'm looking across the ridge line, which is the apex just at the top of the roof there. I'm seeing if there's any loose tiles, and I'm starting from the top away from the chimney and tracking down. Next thing I'm looking at is the guttering. Is it all in? Is it all in line with the neighbours, which it is? Coming down, and then I'm looking at the in between the bricks, seeing if there's any loose parts or anything like that, how messy it is it clean, looking at the windows, any cracks to look out for, and then the overall appearance. So it looks good, it looks like a solid property. And then if we come a bit closer and we go over, we're just sort of walking up to it and just seeing if anything in particular is standing out, but it's not. It's a tidy property. You can see it's got nice fencing outside, probably recently done. It's fairly well maintained and looked after, so immediately no real problems from the outside of this. It's got a decent curb appeal, looking at the brickwork and things like that. And then what we want to do is jump in and start going through this step by step. Okay, so we're inside the property, and I wish I could say I'm warming up, but the nipples do say otherwise. It is freezing in here, but I wanted to do this walkthrough video, and I also wanted to do a little gift. So I've put together this document, and I've tailored it a little bit just for you. So if you stay to the end of this video, I'm going to give you this, and this is my virtual viewing document. So a lot of people ask me, well, Jamie, you seem to do your videos all over. How are you able to do this all over England? Surely you're not driving and pricing up all these refurbs. Well, no, I'm not. What I do is I don't view any properties at all until I started this YouTube channel. I know it's crazy. I built a massive portfolio through this. That sounds really dickish saying that. I built a decent sized portfolio doing this. I've made substantial money. I've never lost money on any property since doing this, and pretty much every time come out at the same profit, if not more, okay? I use something called a virtual viewing document. Some people think it's massively over the top, but I'd rather be over the top. So before we even get in the property, this is given to one of my runners or drivers that's going to go view the property, or you can use Viewer, for example, get some great contacts within that, and then we're going to figure out. So I'm going to be reading through this, and hopefully we'll do some B-roll over the shot top of this so you can see it. So this is what they're doing, and this will accompany the legal pack, and then we're going to price up from using this along with photos all the way through. And again, remember, you're going to get access to this just for being a subscriber on this channel. So if you're not, subscribe now. Okay, let's jump in. So before even doing this, we're going to be going around the area. So this is the area analysis, and I like to block this all together. So the first part is drive around the local area. How do the properties look in comparison? Now, if you watch my last review video, it was called The Worst House in the Best Street. It was in Doncaster. It was a great property, a great investment area with loads of development going in, and this was an absolute shithole in the middle of them all. So if anything, this was the property bringing the rest of them down whilst the others were struggling to keep this up, and so that would be a great investment. So you want to drive around the area, get a feel for it, and also compare what does the outside of this property look like compared to the others. And contrary to what a lot of people want to think, is actually I'd rather it be the worst house in the street than the actual outside look amazing and the rest look crap. Fortunately about this property is they all look pretty great from the outside. The other thing that's really big is this an ex-local property? Is it ex-council? Now, a lot of people don't like buying them. I do, but what it does mean is you want to pay more attention to the demographic in the area. So ex-local or ex-council areas, you want to see how ex that council part is, because if the entire area is a council area, then what that means is the value of the property will say pushed down, because not many people are buying in the area. So what I want to look at is on Street Check or propertydata.co.uk, and I'm going to look at how many people are actually buying in the area, how many are owner occupiers, how many are investors, and if there's over 40% in the area, then it's a brilliant property to be going forward with. The next thing I'm looking at, again keeping on Street Check and property data, is looking at the crime rate in the area. Now, fair warning, there's crime in every single place. If you're going to go on street check now, I know what you're about to do. You're about to put in your postcode and see what crime's there. Don't be scared, it is everywhere, okay? But I want to know what incidences have happened in the last 6 months in this area, which there are plenty, but I want to see how many are actually having break-ins and things like that, things that I'm actually going to be worried about. Next, you're going to want your guy or girl or you to head on upstairs and look out of the window. So when you're looking out of the window, what you're looking for is eyesores. I know this is a bit non-definitive, but it's just a description and an opinion. But if you're looking out, and I know this sounds bad, but you have those areas with the massive flags that people put out, don't they, to represent, I'm independent, I love the country. It could be a bit of an eyesore, it can put people off, little things like that. Is there a bloke outside with a beer balancing on his belly? Little bit of an eyesore. Probably going to impact something, you know. You want to have a good look around, and then just looking around the area. Are there any developments going on within 5 minutes walk? And then the final thing is, if there are any neighbours, make sure they introduce themselves. Oh, hi, we're thinking about buying this property. Like, how long have you been here? Chat to the neighbours, because they gossip. Oh, that neighbour does this, that neighbour does this. There's always going to be gossip. Just make sure there's nothing like, be careful because next door's a drug den. Okay, now I wanted to quickly cover that, and there's more in the document for you to download and look at, because I don't want to go through every single one. You can see it's bloody comprehensive, but that's before we've even got into the property. And the next thing we're looking at is the building works. Now again, I kind of want to group all of this together so we're not spending, because this could be an hour-long video. And when you're going through this and training yourself on this, it will take you a couple of hours, but very quickly you can be in and out of a property within 10-15 minutes. Remember, when you're at the property, you're not here to price up. You're getting in and out, taking photos, and then pricing up remotely from that, okay? It's the way we do it, and it's fairly accurate. So let me just stream through some of these, but remember, you're getting the document at the end of this video, so make sure to stay to the end. And subscribe, and like, and comment, and hit the notification bell. So building works. Are there any subsidence or subsidence issues? Any cracks that you're seeing? Now remember, in my videos, when there's a small crack, let's see if there are any. They don't see, okay, up there a little bit. You can see a little bit of split in there. I am not worried about that sort of thing unless it was going all the way across. Instead, I'm looking for cracks that if you could get your finger in, that's going to be a problem, and I probably want to get a structural surveyor around. Are there any gutter or pipework cracks? Remember, we looked outside first. We're going to do the same in the back garden at the end of this, but we want to make sure if there's any cracks or leaks or anything like that, because it's not just a small thing. It'll probably end up being the whole gutter in, okay, and that can be costly. Remember, we looked outside at the chimney breast and we were looking at the flashing. You want to make sure that's not got any gaps. Are there any signs of damp in the property? Now, what you can do, if we can put a little image up here, is you can go on Amazon and find a decent damp meter for about 80 quid. Okay, make sure you will have that on every single viewing, or make sure your viewer does. And then what you want to be doing is, it has little spikes. If it's a newly refurbed property, you probably don't want to do this. But in a property like this, and you just jab it into the wall, okay? It leaves a little hole. That's it, tiny little thing. But what it's going to tell you is if there's any damp, and you do a couple around the property, just make sure everything's okay, because if it's not, again, that's going to be costly. And sometimes you can't see damp, okay, because it's not come out of where it's coming from right now. So a couple more things is fire damage, fairly obvious when it's there, but how much fire damage? And if there's somebody viewing, don't get pictures of that. Ask them to film it, because that's a small amount of fire damage is absolutely fine. If it's quite a lot, then you won't get a mortgage on the property, which a lot of you will be wanting to buy. Make sure you look at the condition of the roof as well, and not just the tiles and things like that, which can be loose. And if there are a few loose tiles, it's not so much replacing the tiles that's the issue, it's what damage that has done getting into the loft. And you definitely want to have a good look around, make sure there's no leaking and things like that. But also some areas you have a flat roof, which is absolutely fine, but you want, even flat roofs should have a bit of guttering and a slight tilt, like even a few degrees, so that the water's got somewhere to go. So you want to have a look on top of that and make sure there's no puddles there. Okay, so now we move on to the next section of the viewing document, which is the woodwork. So literally what we'll do is get people to walk around, especially the edges of a room. And it sounds a bit stupid and you can't hear anything, hopefully. Oh. No, we're okay. And what we're looking for is squeaky floorboards. Now, they're floorboards, right? You're going to have some every now and then, but I mean those where you go on it and it goes, Okay, I'm going to stop doing that. So we want to have a look at that. So if there is, you know you're going to either have to look at the floorboard, probably replace it rather than nailing it down. It's not that costly, but you do need to be aware of that. And it's stuff that you can't see on a photo. You need them to explain that. And again, I'd ask for a video. Next thing I'm looking about, so the skirting boards down here, what's the quality like? Now, these obviously would get taken away. How are the alcoves? Yellow in this situation. They're getting taken out, and remember, you want photo evidence throughout. The other thing that I'm going to be doing is going around the obvious areas. Okay, so that feels okay, doesn't smell too much of it coming through, but again, I would want to get a damp meter in there, because when it's coming away like that, there's usually a little bit of moisture just behind it. And by the way, if you're in a refurbed property, don't do this to somebody else's house. But if you are in one that needs a full refurb, just giving it a little tug like this, I mean, nobody's going to suddenly not buy the property. You probably want to stop at some point. I obviously get a little bit overzealous and enjoy doing this. As you can see, I'll stop though, because I'll end up getting a bit away with it. But always look at that and then check the woodwork around these areas, okay? This is going to be upstairs and downstairs, and you want the bottoms and the tops. Now, these are well sealed, you can tell already there, nothing's come through, but upstairs, it might be a different story. Make sure to get up there, maybe have a little step ladder with them to get up there and really have a little feel around. So the last thing with woodwork is we always say, to your knowledge, does it have any dry rot? Now, I might do a separate video at some point if you guys want me to put dry rot in the comments, and then I'll do a video on it, because I wouldn't think to do one, what to look out for that, and then I want them to do photo evidence. The reason for this, if it's a bit of dry rot and there's none in this property to show you what it might look like, let me just have a little look. No. If I see some, we'll do some B-roll of it over, but or maybe we can Google image and put it in now. Okay, that's what dry rot looks like. And they want to take photos, because if it's a little bit crumbly, not a big deal. If it's all the way through and it's at the lower sections, you're going to want to rip up that carpet before making an official offer, or certainly before exchanging, because if that dry rot has gone under or in the beams or something like that, it can cause some real long-standing issues. Let's move on to the next section. So the next thing we're going to be looking at is the windows. Okay, so this is the next section. So first thing we're doing is, if the keys are here in a lot of properties, you want to make sure, quick tip when you're buying, make sure you've got the keys to the windows. So the first thing we're looking at is, you're already going to hear this sound. Oh no, I just opened it and then it's locked. Oh, here we go. So does it open smoothly, the windows? The answer is yes, it does. Is it double glazing? And the easiest way is, it's pretty obvious, but if you look at it from this angle, you can always see this level glass and the next one. Now, if you're not used to looking at windows, I mean, when you've looked at a few, you can immediately tell, even like that, that's double glazed. But you'll notice it more when you've seen single glazed property and how it compares. But you always want to make sure it's double glazed, because especially with EPCs, with energy performance certificates, the requirements are going up and up. So it's not mandatory, but a lot of EPC certificates will not pass in a number of years. So it's always worth looking at that as you're going through. Are there any cracks in the windows? Any condensation? Now let's go back here. Yes, there's none here. What you can see on there, if you can see anything, is just rain from the outside. But sometimes what happens is it can have the smallest of sealant around it that's got a gap, and then over the years what happens is the moisture gets in between these two panes of glass and it just completely ruins it. It's not massively costly, we're talking like 80 quid for the glass within that, but if it has got serious condensation all around, and usually if it's happened on one, the person that did the works and did them all on them all, they're probably all ruined and you need to replace those. And new windows throughout, including the actual panels around the edge, is going to be about £6 for a property. Ouch, thing not to miss. So that is everything to do with the windows. Let me just double check. Oh yeah, and within that, the frames are the most important things. Are they straight? So these are pretty straight, but you've seen some examples in the Doncaster property we just did. It was warped, so it was all like that. It needed completely ripping out, and that cost about £6,000 to sort out, which is not exciting. And then of course we move on to the best parts of the house, the kitchen and the bathroom. So I'm going to quick fire through the kitchen and the bathroom, okay? This is all under one section, and remember, download the guide that's given to you at the end of this video, okay? It's really going to help you on your viewings, and let me know what you think about it. It's very comprehensive. So what we're looking for is, number one, what sort of size is the kitchen and what is the shape of a kitchen. The reason that's important is anything like this, where you've got odd shapes, that's going to add to the labor and material cost of the kitchen. What you're looking for is in the corners, are there any damp spots anywhere? Same as in the bathroom. And in your opinion, does this need either new faces, because the carcasses are fine, or would you say this needs a rip out and then a new kitchen, and the same with the bathroom? Now this is going to depend on if you're doing a rental, your tenant type, because in this property, honestly, a lot of people would keep this kitchen in. There's nothing wrong with it. It works. It's got running water. So there's no real issue with it. But with how we do our refurbishments and our tenant types, we are expecting a much higher focus on the value of the property. So we're going to need that. Okay, so you want to have a look at that, look at the windows, look at the flooring, especially in the bathroom, is having a look at the ceiling and how much moisture is there. And remember, photos, photos, photos. So the next one is electrics. This is really important. So first of all, with the electrics, we asked the question, are any of the plug sockets in the skirting boards, which is very common in older houses. If it is, we're almost definitely going to need a full rewire on the property, because it's going to give us a really good idea of when it's done. The next thing is, it could be like this. If you come around here, you can see where that plug is. Now, what that's going to need, since April 2021, you need to have an EICR certificate on a buy-to-let property now. So that would not pass it, because it needs to be 600 up. So it's going to be there. That's where we want the plug sockets. That doesn't mean it's going to need a full rewire, but it does mean you're going to move the sockets, okay? And what we ask for is for them to take photos of 5 plug sockets within the property, because it's going to give us an idea of the average condition and location of where they are. But what we're going to decide on this is going to the consumer unit. Now, the consumer unit is the electrical box, okay? Now, it's going to tell us some bits by the photos. Number one is the date of the consumer unit and when it went in. And what we're going to ask them is to take a photo of that with the wires going in and the date of the consumer unit or the electrical box, and we're going to ask them for a rough guesstimation of when they think the electrics were done. Now, in a lot of properties, the owner of the property is there, or the tenant, so we can ask them some information about this, even though once the view has been a good few times, especially with some of the great people on Viewer, which is an external app you can use for viewings. Give them this, they become really great at what they're doing and give you more insight. But if the tenant or the owner of the property is there, the other thing we ask for is evidence of the last 3 months of the electrics bill. That's going to do 2 things. One, if you're going to be paying that on an ongoing basis, it's going to give you a good estimation of cost, but also you should already know, give or take, what that property should be costing. So if it's dramatically higher, there's almost a definite issue with the electrics in some way that you're going to further want to explore. So the next thing we're looking at is the plumbing. So this is definitely one that you want to do and a lot of people don't think about. So first of all, the tap. Now, I'm near certain the heating is off here, but we'll see. So what we want to do first is turn on the hot tap, notice the pressure, and then how long does it take to warm up. This is getting colder and colder and colder. But as I said, what you want to be doing is measuring, you know, how long is it taking to warm up. Obviously this is not getting any warmer. And it's going to give a really good indication of how the plumbing is and how it's working. Now obviously with this one, we've got the boiler in here. So what I'll be able to see is if it's on or not, which it actually is. Yeah, it is actually on. So technically speaking, that should be heating up. But that tells you something about this property already, right? That the boiler might be working, but it's not kicking out any heat. Now, obviously, when you've done more and more of these, that is literally getting colder. I'm gonna stop that right now. It's gonna tell you something about the property though. And then what we're gonna do is head upstairs. Now this is a big one. Let me turn that back down. Let's head upstairs and let me show you the bath. Okay, so what we're gonna be doing upstairs, now there's a lot more in this, but again, I'm gonna put a lot more in the document with this, is I'm upstairs in the bathroom. I'm turning on the hot tap there. I'm gonna turn on this as well. Oh, you fucker. Of course that was gonna happen. Right, we'll turn that on here. And what you need to look at is, number one, again, you'd be measuring how hot it is. Fuck's sake. And the pressure. Okay, now this is a big thing people don't do on viewings, okay, but it's gonna give you a really good indication. If you're looking at that pressure, are you happy with it? Overall, yeah, it's not too bad, could do with a bit more, but say that was kicking out some hot water, it might be okay to get it on, and then on your way out, just make sure you're flushing the toilet, especially if you've done any business there, but making sure that the pressure is there and it's enough. Some toilets, when you're flushing, it flushes, but not really too much at all. And it's gonna tell you more about the pressure of the boiler. The final couple of things I do, which I'm not gonna go around now, is have a look at the radiators. What's the quality? What's the pipes go into it? Is it polyfit, i.e. plastic under the floorboards, or is it copper throughout? And are there any significant cracks in the radiators that you need to be aware of? And remember, photos, photos, photos. Let's move on to the final section, which is the garden. I just want to point out, and you better not edit this out because Alex is being a little bitch right now. He is freezing cold, he's pissing down, but I wanted to make sure I finished this, and he's all warm and cozy inside. So what are we checking in the garden? Well, first of all, can they get access? A lot of the time, either the garden's so overgrown they can't get here, or there's no keys to the door, or the key's so warped you can't open it. We're looking at the boundaries around here as well with what's going on and making sure it's in good contact. So this, it's a decent fence. That looks like it's put in fairly recently. There's no cracks in the pavement. Are there any significant parts of the flooring as well that's wet? Right now, yes. But the reason why on a more sunny day, what we're looking out for is it level enough? So sometimes when it rains, it collects in one point and it causes quite a lot of damage in that area. Sounds a bit silly, but you need to look out for that. And a final really big part is Japanese knotweed. Now, I think there might be a separate video for me to go what to look out for over there, but when there's plants like this, especially down here, you want to have a really good look out for Japanese knotweed, because what it does is the plant is innocent enough, it's the roots that the problem. It goes deep and wide, and what that can do is cause major damage to the property, and it's really hard to get a mortgage on that. And even if you get it treated, unless you get the right treatment plan with the right insurance, you're going to have some major issues to attest for. So that's it, that's the overall. I'm going to come back in now because it's absolutely blooming freezing. But hopefully that gives you a really rough indication of what we're looking for and why we're able to do it remotely. So hopefully that's been really helpful. Let me know on the layout of that. Maybe I could have prepared it differently, I don't know. But hopefully the value is there. And what I want to do is just, I really appreciate people liking, engaging with videos, and of course, hitting that subscribe button and hitting the notification bell and being a part of this channel. Ultimately, yes, I want this to grow. Yes, I want it to be bigger, but the content is there for you. And just to say thank you, what I've done is I put below in the description a link to our virtual viewings document. You can download it, give it to other people to do viewings on your behalf. Or of course, if you're not a lazy git like me, you can go to the properties yourself and really get acquainted with what is a great property. And remember, it's got a list of equipment that you need to get before you even start doing these viewings, what to do before from start to finish, so that you can then go away and accurately account for the cost of the refurbishment of this property. Hopefully that's added value. Hit the like, hit the subscribe and the notification bell, and hey, give this video a watch right now. See you in the next video.